So we wanted a big ending. Lots of discussion about how it should feel. You don't feel warmth unless you have cool. If you can give it two contrasting colours, then your brain sits in this midpoint where it can see both of those colours.
I gotta know, what are these up here?
These are these sort of inflatable LED lights. They're much bigger than they look in that photo. They look like Titan tubes, but they're not. The size was all about the softness. The size wasn't about the outputs, but VFX got rid of the road. They snowed up everything. They did a bit of sky replacements.
A bit?
I mean, the number one cinematography approach from this scene was film it quick. It was the first time we had Kira on the set. My plan was to put 3 cameras on it. They're tough because you've got to look at what all 3 cameras are doing at the same time. They're tough to light because what's good for one angle is bad for another. I had to put on my TV drama hat. On TV dramas, you work fast and you throw everything at it.
How long have you been at this? Do you think you'll ever lose your edge? All right, Ben Spence, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Dylan. How are you?
I'm great, man. It's been a great day.
Good. Thanks for having me on your podcast.
Of course. Well, today we're talking about the perfect gift for Waitrose.
Come on, Phil. It's time to move on. It's what Shelley would have wanted.
Well, Shell said the only person I could move on with was Keira Knightley, so...
Keira Knightley?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, good luck with that, mate.
Sussex Charmer, please.
I'm Keira.
I'm Keira. I'm Phil. Phil.
Nice to meet you, Phil.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to jump into this a little bit and understand. I think when I look at your other work, it makes sense to me based off of the way that looks that you were a perfect fit for this. But why do you think you were the one selected to shoot this?
So I guess there's multiple parts to answer that question. I knew the director. Molly Manners is a friend of mine who I've worked with before. So when she got the job, my name was on her list. I actually, in a strange sequence of events, I actually shot last year's Waitrose commercial as well, 2024 Waitrose commercial, with a different director and different production company and a different advertising agency. So I think they were happy with that. So I think that allowed me to get it. And I guess just sort of, you have a body of work as a DOP, and if your body of work sort of kind of lines up with what the intent is of the client and the agency and your director, then yeah, hopefully you get the job. But I think really what got me in the door was my director and friend Molly Manners.
Yeah. Then Molly comes to you and puts this project in front of you. What are your thoughts?
So when I get a phone call, normally I get a treatment in my inbox, a director's treatment. And so the director has worked on this document to generate images and thoughts and creative thoughts based on the agency's script. So client goes to advertising agency, can we make an advert? Advertising agency comes up with the basic idea and often the script, and then it goes to directors to treat to for them to explain how they're going to make the advert. So when I'm brought on board, I normally receive one of these director's treatments in my inbox, and this time was no different. So I got a treatment from Molly saying, "Hey, actually, I don't think she quite got the job yet. Hey, I think I might be maybe about to get this job. What do you think? Are you around?" And then that very quickly progressed to, "I've got the job. Are you around?" And in her, her treatment was full of amazing images of 80s, 90s, early 2000s rom-coms, and really that was sort of the beginning of the designing of the look of the advert.
Yeah, it totally feels like that now that you say that. I mean, when it comes to this look, What were your tools? So, give me some quick details on your choices and what you think gave this look.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I as a mid 40s bloke, I sort of grew up on a diet of movies from a late 80s to late 90s to early 2000s, and I'm not a huge rom-com fan, but I have seen films such as Bridget Jones. I have seen films such as Love Actually. I've seen lots and lots of. I've seen The Holiday. I've seen lots and lots of rom-coms, and it's kind of sort of embedded into my psyche and into my sort of visual memory. I think what that period looks like, and so I guess I watched a bunch of references and I looked at a bunch of images, but also I had this sort of image in my head, which was also on Molly's treatment, which was this sort of, how do I say it? A slightly retro lit look. So you might these days you might have slightly less backlight, you might have slightly less sort of filtration, but actually kind of we brought a little bit of that back into it. So slightly heavier backlight, slightly heavier diffusion filtration on the camera, and that was our aim. Our aim was sort of a love letter to rom-coms of the, I mean, really, especially the mid-90s.
What was your sensor? What were your lenses? What was that filtration?
So we shot the advert on the Alexa 35, which is the 35mm censored Arri Alexa camera. There it is. Which is just a workhorse of a camera. It's fantastic. It creates fantastic images. It looks really filmic. It holds highlights really, really well. That's one of the main things it does. So you get this amazing sort of filmic roll off in the highlights. It just works as well. It's no fuss. You get it on set and it works. And that's a key thing for me is not just how it looks, but how it works on set. It needs to make my life stress free. So that was my choice for camera, and then for lenses we went with a set of Zeiss Supreme Primes. These are sort of they're designed to cover full frame cameras, so cameras with bigger sensors, but they cover fantastically sensors with smaller cameras like the Alexa 35. We went with the Supremes because they're fast. They're T1.5, so if you want, you can have very shallow depths of field, and you can create a lovely three-dimensional image. But also because they're not razor sharp, there's a slight softness about them, and it's not an out of focus softness. It's very much in focus, but it's just a sort of a little subtle hint of sort of filmic softness, especially when wide open. And it's a really subtle effect, but it works fantastically well. Also, as a set of lenses, they came with a wide selection of focal lengths, and often we're shooting multiple cameras, so we get focal lengths very close to each other. So I think there's 11 focal lengths, 11 lenses in the set, so you're never far away from the next lens, which was very useful.
Oh wow! So you had quite the selection. Were you ever like on set being like, we kind of planned for this to be on the 50, but let's just see what the 35 looks?
Oh, all the time. Yeah. I think for me, it's you at every stage of making adverts or TV, is you have a plan, and then you have hopefully the space to pivot as well when you come up with a better idea. But yes, it was a big selection of lenses, and for the most part, I think a lot of it we shot 2 cameras, and sometimes we shot 3 cameras as well at the same time, in order to get the scenes that we needed in the day. So yeah, I had a lot of camera kit.
3 cameras, that's amazing. I mean, you move a lot faster with 3 cameras. How much time did you guys have to shoot this thing in its entirety?
So what you see is a 4-minute film, which is unusual for an advert. There were cut downs of that. So what goes on TV normally isn't 4 minutes. Normally they're 30 seconds or sometimes 60 seconds. So there were 30 and 60-second cut downs of the 4-minute film. It's quite unusual for there to be a 4-minute advert, and what Waitrose did when it was broadcast was to point people to the online film. And I think that was a great success, apparently.
Sure.
As well as that 4-minute film and the cut downs, we also had a bunch of what's called brand films, which are, selling a certain bit of food or a certain pie or whatever it may be. So we had a lot of those to film. I can't remember how many we had. We had something like 8 or 10 of those to shoot, as well as the 4-minute ad.
Wow.
So I think we shot a total of 7 days. I think it was.
Okay.
But that didn't just include this 4-minute film. It included,
Right.
best part of a dozen different adverts, which you don't see here. But those are the things which get plastered on TV as well. Sort of little 10-second adverts, 15-second adverts. Some of them with our cast, some of them without our cast, depending on their availability.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, were you shooting all that, or did they have like a second unit doing some of that?
They had a second unit shooting the food close-ups. So the food close-ups are quite a specialist job, and 2, they're quite time-consuming. So what happens is with the food shooting, it takes quite a long time to light it. And then it takes quite a long time to get the food ready and bring the food out. And the food's only good for a few seconds. And then it looks a bit weird. And so they've got to come up with a whole another bunch of food again and do it again. And they've got to put the cream on it. And the cream doesn't land correctly. So we've got to get rid of that one and bring another one in. So essentially to do that whilst you've got Keira Knightley, waiting there, you don't want to be doing that. So that was sort of, the food close-ups were spun off separately and they were run parallel to our shoot, depending on what location we were at. I think they ran for about 3 days of food close-ups. I'm not sure any of their shots made it into this film. I'm trying to think. No, I don't think any of their shots made it into this film. And that's that's quite a brave thing for a company selling food to not feature any food in their adverts. There's a pie, but it's not a pie you can buy in Waitrose, but I don't think there's any food in it at all.
Right. Cheese, I think the closest thing I can find is this, cheese board setup.
And that's sort of just teeing up a joke. That's not even a real cheese. For Sussex Charmer, I don't think it's a real cheese.
That's amazing. Let's, you know what, man? Let's just start with the first shot here. That's establishing. I mean, what a beautiful street corner. How did you guys find something so beautiful?
Well, again, it started with an idea and a reference. I mean, what Molly's reference was The Holiday, and there's all these lovely, amazing shots of the cottage in The Holiday, which are actually a model, I found out whilst we were prepping for this. So we sort of looked around the place, and we were talking about going out to the countryside to find a country pub, because that's what they wanted. They wanted something out in the country. I think it was originally written at night, and I said, can we make it dusk? Because that's still very Christmassy. It's still, you've still got a lot of darkness there, but you haven't got actual pitch darkness. So right. I had to sort of suggest, can we move it to dusk? So with dusk, you can see the detail in the countryside and the rolling hills, and you've also got a nice bit of color contrast. So you got a warm and cool, whereas at night you get a lot more darkness, and you'd lose all that lovely color contrast. So that was what we hunted for. Whilst we were looking, we found an interior of a pub, which is the one you see in the adverts there. And it had a really nice exterior, and we started looking at it and started talking about it, and it wasn't quite right for what the agency and the client wanted. They really wanted a country pub. They really wanted to reference The Holiday quite strongly. It was the opening shot. I think you got to put your cart out on the opening shot, and something you got to really go, oh, what is the thing that the audience is watching here? You got to give them a cue.
Right.
And
wait, so you're saying that the interior, this shot here, is the actual interior of this building here? Wow.
Correct. Yeah, so that's the real interior. But it wasn't right. It was on a main road in London. There was no way for us to snow all the streets, and so we did it with a bit of help from VFX and a bit of help from Dusk. We shot the exterior. And they did a bit of work on it. I think the image you're looking at is the monitor image. I think we actually turned over on this, but I think the actual turning over was about 20 minutes later. So essentially what happened was as you can see, they kept a lot of the street, the shape of the street, all the building, a lot of the sort of the foliage and buildings in the background and things like that were also kept. And then the lighting interaction was kept, but VFX got rid of the road. They snowed up everything. They did a bit of sky replacements, maybe slightly less ferocious than it looks on that image, because that was shot sort of 15 minutes earlier into dusk. And they turned our sort of central London, well, not quite central, central-ish London pub into a lovely countryside pub.
Wow. I'm just noticing that the moon there. But the thing is, Ben, like under the perfect amount of scheduling and resources and luck, are you really ever going to find an image that looks perfectly like this with the moon that looks perfectly like
No,
this? Like yeah,
you can't at all. I mean, number one, the moon will never light that area, and it wouldn't light it in that way at all. So, I mean, it's sort of it has to be dusk. I mean, yes, you can maybe shoot that. You can maybe find a place with that. I think you would have
yeah,
to do dusk, and that is sort of dusk light in order to expose the image. Um, well, man, you could look for years. I mean, again, the holiday being a prime example, and you'd have to just check this fact, but my understanding of the cottage on the holiday, a lot of the exteriors, which look gorgeous,
gorgeous.
are just models. It's just a model kit. It's just a model
Yeah,
kit. It's like a sort of 20th scale model kit, which they poured over and made look fantastic, and that's
yeah.
why you don't see Jude Law walking in and out of the house because it's a model kit because he just tread on it.
This warm amber golden softness, yes, the filtration helps with that. But I think talk to me about your key light here and how you guys
Absolutely.
did that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I love keying from a side. I love bringing shape to people. I try never to have my key light behind camera, but always have it 90 degrees from a lens. So I'm attacking Joe there with, there you go. You can see me there. I'm attacking Joe with a sort of sidey key with a T-bar with diffusion on it, and behind that is probably, I think, a light matte spectrum, I believe. And then I think on the left-hand side, what you're seeing there is just a bit of fill, which is another T-bar diffusion, but there's nothing behind it, so it's just a bit of ambience bouncing around. And what
Yeah.
you can also see there is a big old bit of backlight, which is that egg-crated light matte 2L in the background. That there, exactly.
Hmm.
So just simple bit of keying from side, a little bit of fill, and a big old bit of 90s backlight.
Yeah. If you weren't going for the 90s rom-com look, would this backlight be the way that it is?
Probably not. I think for me, I actually don't like backlight. I don't think. Yeah, it always feels overlit whenever there's backlight, and so I'm very careful when I use it. But it was a big thing in the 90s. People loved a hair light or a backlight to give shape, and so it's little tiny subtle things like that which all add up to create the subtly retro atmosphere. I think not one thing does it.
Totally.
This if you go to the opening shot again, you'll see that it's warm on the inside and cool on the outside. If you then show me that interior shot again, the wider end of it, perhaps you see that window behind him. So
Yeah, it's cool.
it's cool. We gelled up the window. So we shot this in the middle of the day, and in order to get the dusk, we put full CTB on the windows, full color temperature blue gel and ND9 together, in order to turn the daylight into dusk light. So the ND3 knocks 3 stops off the brightness, and the full blue turns 5,600 Kelvin daylight into, I don't know, sort of 10,000 Kelvin dusky light.
That's so cool, man. I was on one set once where they did that for Moonlight, and I was blown away by it. I mean, it was like 12 p.m., hot as hell outside. I go inside, and it's like moonlight.
It's amazing. It's such an amazing trick. I do honestly think I'm going to go to some kind of environmental hell at some point. When I die, I'm going to find myself in sort of some kind of horrible thing where all this plastic which I've used up over the years, gelling up windows. The number of dolphins that have died because of my desire to make windows dusky. Poor things, poor dolphins.
Let's go to the grocery store here. Love this. Beautiful. It's color palette wise, it's kind of fluorescent. It's kind of gray. I know we're going for this magical rom-com, but tell me just about your cinematography approach to the scene.
Absolutely. I mean, the number one cinematography approach from this scene was film it quick. It was actually one of the most. It's one of the most important scenes. It's the meets cute. It's it's the thing where our hero bumps into what will become a heroine. It's sort of it happens in every rom-com. It was a really important scene. It was the first time we had Kira on set. It was the first time Kira and Joe had actually met properly. They'd spoken on the phone, I believe. So it was a bit of a stressy time. In addition to that, and I'll say this in the most completely polite way possible. We had scheduling complications. We had the shop we were filming in. We had to be out by a certain time. I believe it was 11 a.m. And because of Kira's hours, because she lived so far away from it, we couldn't get her on set until I think 8 a.m.
Oh, wow.
So we had about 3 hours to shoot this. Now, normally on a commercial, you sort of budget schedule wise. Oh, it's me and Kira. You budget schedule wise, like an hour per shot. Maybe, sometimes you do 2 hours per shot. On commercials, you pour over shots for a very long time.
Right.
And rightly so. It needs to be right, and client needs to be happy. But on this particular scene, I had to put on my TV drama hat. On TV dramas, you work fast and you throw everything at it in order to get it done. My plan was to put 3 cameras on it. Luckily, Molly had done 3 camera shoots before. In fact, I'd worked with her on some 3 camera shoots. They're tough because you've got to look at what all 3 cameras are doing at the same time.
Yeah.
They're tough to light because what's good for one angle is bad for another. In the top hands of that, just above the monitors there in the background, you can see the lighting rig in the ceiling. So there's a just sort of above and to the right of the monitors.
I see her.
On your screen. So we rigged about 6 or 7. I wish I had a better shot of it. 6 or 7 light map 2Ls. There's a couple there in a big arc. And the lighting crew were in there the night before, after the shop closed from about midnight, I think, rigging those, getting them into position so that we could shoot 3 cameras at the same time. And essentially they all became a big giant backlight, which kind of wrapped around a little bit and became a front light when they looked at each other, or a little sidey light, and worked as quite heavy backlights for each of them as well. So it was kind of, if I wasn't into backlight, it would have been a nightmare, because essentially it's one big soft round backlight. But because of the general plan vibes for the advert, it worked really well.
Talk to me about stand-ins. How does that work? Why do we do it? I think I know, but just explain it.
Well, there's sort of, you always want, when you're prepping a job, when you're recceing, occasionally you bring stand-ins because they're very useful to line up without your cast there, without any stress, without any worry about time, and they're very good to sort of you can then take those images and you can describe them to other people and say, this is the shot of Kira. I think Laura here actually is a regular stand-in for Kira. When you get to the shoot day, there's often tweaking to happen, and there's often playing around with lights and things like that. And really, you just need a person who is loosely close to the same height, skin tone, hair as your leads, and then they can work perfectly as someone who stands there and saves your key cast from just standing there whilst I muck around with lights.
Yeah.
A good stand-in, of which these guys are good professional stand-ins. It's not just a job for anyone. A good professional stand-in will watch the action on a rehearsal, and then they will mimic that action exactly. They're not actors; they won't act, but they'll move and look at eye lines, do their eye lines, and do things like that, and exactly how the actors do it. And so, good stand-ins are absolutely amazing. They do a job I can never do, but where they just really, really pay amazing attention to the cast.
Yeah, they're aware that every little inch difference in the angle of their face matters to what's going on.
Yeah. To answer your question in terms of what the shops will feel like, I mean, it's a tricky one, because we did talk about, we went round and round the circles a little bit with what the Waitrose should feel like. I wanted to push a little bit of green into it, partly because that's brand colours, partly because in my head it's a little bit fluorescent, and also green in the background and the shadows works quite nicely against skin tones. I think we pulled that back a little tiny bit, but it was a tricky one, because you kind of you want to give it mood. I try hard to swing locations to give them color and make them feel unique. However, it is a supermarket, and it's a supermarket which we're being paid to film for. They're the clients. So you can't make it look cold, and you can't make it look green. You can't make it look nasty. So it was an exceptionally subtle fluorescent look, but one which definitely didn't interfere with skin tones. is essentially where we landed. But it's a tricky thread to sew, that one.
Yeah. I mean, this has got to be the nicest fluorescent looking room I've ever seen.
Good. Oh, thank you.
That's
I'm
beautiful.
available for any supermarket commercials, by the way, if anyone wants to employ me.
Hey, why is this camera not on a tripod? In this shot, it doesn't really move, but it's on like a dolly.
Yeah, that camera is on an underslung head. So we had a number of tripod heads with us. We didn't need to put it on an underslung head. It's the correct way up on an underslung head. So that bowl at the bottom of the tripod head, actually what you often do is you put that at the top, and then you've got an underslung head, which means you can arm out and put it over the top of things. We just happen to have that rather than another normal head. So rather than having like dozens of different heads, we were fairly minimalist with what we had, and that's what that is. It looks like a remote head, but it's not. Unfortunately, it's nothing as exciting as a remote head.
So you sent me some lighting plots for overheads. Just kind of break this scene down for me.
I like camera plots. I like to sketch these sort of things out, and you can see I've color coded it. I think the sort of the red cameras were the first ones we did, and I might even have written in the shooting order in this. I think we sort of started with the red ones and then went to the orange ones and then did the blue ones and then fell back for the green ones. So we did 1, 2, 3, 4 setups in 3 hours. Each one was multi-camera.
Hi.
Hi.
I've made you something special to say. Hey, Kiki, darling, is that the food delivery? Bit weird. Sorry, Sorry. Why did I ever think that should...
All right, let's get into the grand finale here. I think the first thing I saw about this project in any behind-the-scenes fashion was this image. And I gotta know, just going into this exterior scene, get me in your head. How did you prep for this? What were your decisions?
So we wanted a big ending for the advert, and in our reckoning, we found this house. I mean, we had to script it. The script said Keira Knightley had to have a house. Whilst we were looking for it, we found this house was actually about 5 doors down from the pub location, really what we wanted to do was a beautiful moonlight kiss. And the main reference for this was the end of, I think it's the last shot of Bridget Jones. And there's a big old crane shot, and I think this came from Molly, my director, who wanted this exactly that. So this is the last shot of Bridget Jones, where Renée Zellweger and Colin Firth kiss, and then the crane jibs up. And we wanted to do, well, Molly and then me wanted to do our version of that. I mean, this is sort of where, references, I mean, if you look at that Bridget Jones, it looks pretty dated. To be fair to it, it is 30 years old, or whatever it is. So, we wanted to do our own version of that. Lots of discussion about how it should feel. I love a nice color split. I love warm and cool. I think it's really pleasing to the eye. I think it allows you to wrap people in warmth, but push coolness in the shadows. I think you don't feel warmth unless you have cool, and so to bring it into a sort of bring that the kiss at the very end, the very end of our advert into a sort of a moonlight world, but also with a lovely warm wrap was my goal throughout that.
Wow, that's huge. You don't really feel the warmth unless it's cold outside, so you have to have that blue.
So I think for me, when I'm lighting, I try really hard to have color contrast, because your brain adjusts almost instantly to any image you give it. If I feel, I mean, some of this is fact, some of this is opinion. I feel if you can give it 2 contrasting colors, then your brain sits in this midpoint where it can see both of those colors. If you just give it warm, it'll tune out. the warmth, and eventually it'll just look neutral. If you just give it cold, eventually it'll tune out the cold and it'll just feel neutral. But if you can give it both, it kind of sits in that middle ground where it feels both the warm and the cool. And that's what I try my very best to do for not all my lighting, but a lot of my lighting.
What are these up here?
So this the long version of this house is a lovely, big, enormous, grand house. It's been, it must be 300 years old, in southwest London. It has its own bit of private land, a small amount. Just behind camera, there's a sort of some gates, and out there is London. Like all old houses, there's lots of weight restrictions as to what you can drive up its driveway. What I wanted to do was build a big softbox. So the big softbox to create a base of moonlight in the shadows, so nothing is completely black. There's just a sort of low level amount of coolness, and then I also wanted a big backlight. It's the 90s after all. Well, it's not, but in my head it was the 90s. We wanted to put a couple of big machines, so cherry picker type machines, out there, but we couldn't. So we ordered those and we asked for those, and then we were told we couldn't because of weight restrictions. And so we went through a big process, me and my gaffer, going, oh, what on earth can we use? We could use a helium balloon, but they are incredibly expensive. The helium is very expensive, and you still got to build it into a cage and use a machine. So once you built the cage and done the thing, do the helium, it wasn't looking great for production. We're not best thrilled with me, and we needed two of them. So we went round and round and round, and then my gaffer, Greg Probert, said, what about rod lights? These are these sort of inflatable LED lights, and each one of those is 8 on that machine there. I think each one of those is 8 feet long or 16 feet long. They're much bigger than they look in that photo. They look like Titan tubes, but they're not. They're enormous, bloody great things. And essentially, they're mostly just air. And so with a small bit of scaffolding and the right bit of rigging, we created 2 sets of those. One which was for above the cast, which is the one with 8 beams in it. Maybe they are 8 foot. No, I think they're 16 foot. I can't remember. They're big. And then one is a backlight as well, which you can see. No, it's definitely 16 foot. They're big old things.
They're big.
For me, the size was all about the softness. The size wasn't about the output, because I didn't need a lot of light, but what I wanted was it to come from as bigger an area as possible. So it all goes into the shadows and it wraps around and it gets into everything. So I wanted a soft light, and the bigger the lamp, the softer it is. And then I also wanted a harder backlight, which is that smaller one. So if you look at the photos you can kind of see the one above looks a lot dimmer, and that's because I think we took it down to about 5% on the dim. My guess is I think it was about 5% and about 15,000 Kelvin. So very, very, very cold. So a lot of cold in that. And the backlight, I think, was also 15,000 Kelvin and about, I think, 100%. So
wait, so you had all that light, all that, and then you were really going for coverage because you had all that power, but then turned it down to 15%.
Absolutely. So it was all just about softness rather than output.
Gotcha. Because you had a big space to cover.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. You've got a big space. Exactly. So that created the cool base, and then I also wanted warmth from a house, and that was a little bit difficult. And these are the sort of conversations which you have with directors. For example, I wanted to ideally keep cast a bit closer to the house so that the light would wrap out on them a bit more.
Of course.
Molly wanted that to be a bigger walk so that they were further away from the house. Obviously, directors always win. And ultimately, I think she was probably right in the end. But what that meant was I had to sort of figure out how to extend this light from the house, this warm light, which is what you want to key them with. You don't want to key them with the cold moonlight, because that wouldn't look nice. Sort of defeats the point. So essentially, what you've got in that house is at the top, you've got in top windows, you've got 3 Vortex 8s at something like 2,800 Kelvin, so very, very warm. And you've got an aperture as well in the middle for a little bit extra throw, a little bit extra bite. And then we put a bunch of festoons on the tree to one side as well. And that, for me, that's all about motivation. Those things didn't necessarily light them. What lit them there is that big 8x8. When we come in for the close-ups, we bring that in, and that does their faces. But what I'm always looking for is motivation. I'm looking for what is the thing that is creating that warm light. Otherwise, it's coming from nowhere. So
right.
for
Yeah,
me,
because these lights on the tree are beautiful, but you don't need much to be able to motivate the warm light, right? 'Cause it is a
exactly.
little,
Yeah. I mean, if you really look carefully at this, there is some lighting continuity issues. I mean, like, there's a blue light on her face, there's a warm light on her face. Where's the light coming from? But hopefully, just no one notices in the cut. But yeah, this was a big night. I mean, again, we were up against it. We didn't have anything like the amount of time which we wanted. And I say this, I can work fast. I'm used to working fast, but this was sort of an especially bit of fast work where we had to be, the second it was dark, we had to be up and running and going. But luckily, we had a fantastic crew who enabled all that. And we had also, and it's rare, I say things like this, we had fantastic director, agency and clients who also were aligned with us that we had to shoot quickly and we had to move on fast. So yeah, it sort of worked out okay in the end.
Yeah, it's a beautiful piece, man. Tell me something else. I've run out of questions. Ball's in your court here.
Yeah, I mean, I can talk to you about this scene here at the door. This is a sort of a at the doorway is a sort of a Love Actually pastiche. In fact, there's a line which was cut, I think, where she said, "Oh, tell me you haven't got cue cards," because obviously in Love Actually a guy turns up at the door with cue cards. We had to, because of schedule, so her angles towards her, we tinted out the doorway and we shot those in the day. So it's the middle of the day here, it's not night at all. And we pushed some cool light, some 15,000 Kelvin light, like what I was going to use outside, to play in the shadows on her face. And then later on, when we shot his coverage, we had the cameras inside and we shot it at night. I think this was the last thing we shot of the advert was him in the doorway with the pie. I believe that's the very last thing we shot, which is slightly unfair on Joe. It's slightly unfair to throw the last thing of the day as his main bit, but he was game. He was really good.
I love this frame. Yeah.
These were sort of slightly complicated things that you end up having to do in order to. There's always, in a dream world, you'd have all the time, and when you're a young DOP, you think, oh, I can't wait till I do big Christmas adverts, and I have all the time in the world, and I'll really think about the lighting, and I'll stroke my chin, and everyone will just do what I want to do, and we'll go to midnight, we'll go to 3 o'clock in the morning to make the perfect shot, and all this kind of stuff, and actually really. I've never encountered a job like that in my 25 years of working, and I'm not sure I ever will. I'm not sure I ever want to be totally honest. It's all about compromises. It's all about trying to get your creative ideas and how to juggle the compromises. And actually, that's the exciting thing. Is like how the fuck are we going to work this thing out? Like, so for example, the reason we did it like that is because the local council in London have a very strict rule that after 11 o'clock you don't film outside, and that's it. There's no bending. Doesn't matter how much you pay them. That's it. So we had to get something away from our night work. So night fell. We shot this, I think, in early September. So it got dark at about 7 p.m. So we had 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. We had to shoot all those exterior things, and we looked at this scene in the doorway, and we thought, well, if we shoot towards Kira, we can shoot that in the day. And is it ideal? Absolutely not. But does it mean we get all the shots and get all the coverage? Yes, it does. And so that's, and the magic of the edit. I mean, it could be in different countries. She could be in Australia and he could be in Germany, and you'd never know. But they weren't. They were both there. But, it's the real fun of filmmaking, I think, isn't just creating, but it's also about creating within confines and working those compromises and making the very, very best out of every single bad hand you get.
Yeah. 100%. No matter how good you get, what jobs you get, you'll always get bad hands. You'll always have to work as fast as you possibly can, right?
all day long. It's never ideal. And to be honest, I think ultimately, if you name no names, I think there's many directors over the years who, their early films perhaps are fantastic because they had to struggle and they had to compromise and they had to work. And I think actually when you don't have to do it anymore, when you get infinite time and infinite money and whatever to do your work, that's when you lose an edge, and I think that's when you lose maybe a sort of a quality to your art, which I don't know. I don't want to name any names or badmouth anyone, but I think the compromise and the complications are what fires things forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long have you been at this? Do you think you'll ever lose your edge?
I'm sure I'm going to lose my age. I think I lost my age about 15 years ago. So I have been doing this sort of in various guises for about 23 years. I started off in what we call factual entertainment, like reality TV, making kids TV, and things like that. Things for like MTV was one of my first clients. Wasn't really what I do now, and I spent a sort of quite a long time, very slowly working my way into this world, into a world of sort of commercials and drama. It took a while. I'm still learning it, and I don't think I'll ever stop learning it.
Yeah. What are you excited about? How do you see the industry changing, and how do you feel yourself adapting to it?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think I know everyone's worried about AI. I'm not saying it's not a worry. I've yet to see AI which can produce something like a human being, and I know some degree about tech and some degree about computers. I'm a geek. I've yet to understand how that can really work in a way which entertains people and destroys our industry. Will it take out some of our industry? Yeah, I think so. But I mean, that's what happens. Things changes, right, all the time. I think actually what probably is not more dangerous, but a thing which I think we need to understand is viewing habits. Is viewing habits change? 30 years ago, people would watch a soap opera on TV. They would watch daytime TV. They would sit in a cinema and watch a film. All those things are changing. All those things are moving. I mean, look, I'm a 44-year-old man. I can barely sit and watch a film at home because I'm on my phone, because my brain is destroyed by my phone. What about the next generation and the next generation? So there is, and I don't think this is a need for despair for us, but I think it's an understanding that viewing habits are changing. And of course, what I would love to do is a film with loads of slow tracking shots and loads of slow zooms and cinematography you really sit in. But I wouldn't fucking watch it. I wouldn't be able to watch it. I wouldn't be able to sit through it. I get bored of it. So it's my dream is to do those really sort of slow tracking shots and all that kind of shit. But I don't think it's not my dream to watch. So it's for me, it's about understanding that viewing habits are constantly changing. I don't think they'll probably ever stop changing. But we're in a very specific sort of inflection point of viewing habits. And I think that's a bigger thing right now than AI.
Yeah, that was a really good answer to that really tough question. Total destruction? I think no, absolutely not. Evolving like it always has and like it always will? Absolutely.
I think unless you're keeping your eye on the evolution of viewing habits, unless you're keeping eye on those things, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. So I think it's really, really important to look to the future and not fight it. You can't change the world's viewing habits, so embrace them. Stick with it. People like fast cuts. People like cut.
Dude, also like attention spans can only get so short. You know what I mean?
Well, that's why this Waitrose advert is reasonably unique, actually. Well, it's because it's a 4-minute advert. They've gone sort of Waitrose went the opposite direction and decided to put out this sort of 4-minute film, which is, I know it's weird, and it's also like it's also a trailer for a film which doesn't exist. It's a really weird thing, but it seems to have captured people seem to absolutely fucking love it. Which I mean, I'm happy with that. But it's an unusual format in a world of unusual formats.
100%. Benedict Spence, thanks so much for this time. It's been a literal pleasure just to get to talk to you.
Thanks, Dylan. It's been my pleasure as well. I hope you edit out all my swears.
This show is made possible in part by viewers like you, and obviously Frameset, which is where you go to develop your ideas before you shoot them. Search for the perfect references and use them to build a pitch that will win you the project of your dreams. It's also totally free to get started, so check the link below. Okay, thank you.